So I know this isn't ideal, but it's going to be short. Because I'm not going to have time to make another video later tonight. And I thought about making one earlier today, but I just had other things to do, really. Scheduled mornings. If you can call it that. I don't know if that's really just like take a shower, eat. Hi, Michael. But I thought I would tell a little story because it's been rolling around in my head, and it's not particularly a pleasant one, but it's, I think, informative. When we were doing Qigong this morning, for the last week since my foot is healed, we've been doing Qigong at the foot of the hill that this little house is on. This little house. At the foot of it, there's a lot of shade there, and it's a flat, level space. And there's a lot less people in town than there used to be, right? So there's nobody there in the mornings. There used to be people at the beginning of last month when we started doing Qigong. There would be people practicing exercises there, but they haven't been there this week. And we started doing our yoga there, our Qigong there. And maybe 50 feet from the wall where we're doing Qigong, the big rock wall, maybe 50 feet, there's a hut that a couple are living in. And I think it was on Monday, the Dutch student of mine was like, don't make eye contact with him. I think he's angry or scared and he doesn't want us to be here. And I was like, whatever. I figured I don't need to deal with it. And today he shouted at us. And the Italian fellow was like, I'm not a dog. I don't need to be shouted at from 10 feet from 10 meters away. And I was like, yep, that's not exactly a nice form of communication. But throughout the whole practice, I felt bad energy, And especially when doing Qigong, when you're trying to work with subtle energies, it's not pleasant to feel bad energy. So when we were done, I was like, I'm going to go talk to those guys, and I will see you guys later this evening. And today is the first day of the Mantak Chia seminar that I'm going to be assisting in. And I'm going to see them afterwards. But I went over and I started talking to these people. And I'm not sure if they're Dutch or German, but they were righteous, indignant, disturbed, angry, upset, mocking, all sorts of nasty energy. They had a very nice fat male cat who was laying on his back, sunning himself during the whole conversation, so that was nice. But they told me that they had, spent a lot of time traveling the world. They had been coming here for 22 years. And they started complaining about all the people who are sitting where we've been practicing Qigong, playing guitar and hanging out there. Every day there's people, and I'm like, we're not playing guitar. Are we being too loud? Are we irritating you? They're like, no, it's not that you're being loud. And I was like, does it bother you that we're naked? And they're like, no, it's not that you're naked. And I was like, it's just that we're there. And he's like, yeah, you're there every day. Why do you have to be there every day? I was like, okay, we're not being loud. It's not that we're naked. You just don't like that we're practicing meditation and Qigong and yoga 50 feet away from your hut. He was like, yeah, we just want an empty beach. We just want an empty beach. There's too many people here. And I was like, yeah, it's unfortunate that you're not the only people left on the planet. However, being in your 60s, you may learn that being unhappy is not a good way to be happy. I don't know, what else do you say to someone like that? But they said they've been coming here for 22 years and there's way too many people here now and it's really crazy, but this is their home now because of the virus and they can't leave. And I was just like, all of us we have a tendency, if we look at the history of our minds, if you remember what you felt like, if you can remember what you felt like as a teenager or a kid, the perceptions you had about old people that made you laugh about how they were always having trouble with younger people and always complaining about how things have changed and that nobody does what they want them to do or whatever. it made me look at these people that have been, traveling since they were my age or younger, adventuring around the world, and they find themselves being upset by everybody doing whatever it is that makes them happy, playing guitar. And literally, the ocean is so loud here, and especially down there, that you can hardly hear anything. It's not irritating, right? It's just sound. But just the fact that the mere existence of other people could cause them so much pain and suffering. And it's something I've always associated with Americans, this idea of strange antisocial social structure, meaning like everybody wants to move out of the city into the suburbs and then move out of the suburbs into the country. Everybody wants to get away from everybody else, and that's the idea of peace, to be able to get away. And again, it boils down to that Buddhist idea that, we have a fallacy recipe for happiness, that if we get what we want, we'll be happy, and if we get away from what we don't like, then we'll be happy. But it just doesn't work like that. You have to just choose to be happy. And I just tried to stand there and listen to them and let them feel heard and like repeat what they were saying. And I wished I could have said to them without upsetting them, do you have any idea that you sound like the cliche of every old person in the world? Old person, who's upset that the world has changed and is upset that, that it's somehow a problem that the world has changed. I wanted to point out to them the beach has changed in the last couple months since I've been here. Can you be angry at the beach for changing? Can you be angry at people for building houses, people for making money? This has happened because they came here, because all of us have come here. And they were so angry about just the mere existence of other people. They were like, we just want an empty, quiet beach. And I was like, well, that's probably not going to happen, honey. And they mocked. He was like, these travelers these days, it's all peace and love and everything, but they're not respecting other people. They're not coming up and asking me if they can be here, because this is where I'm living. And I was like, this isn't your beach, and this isn't your hotel. It's just a place you're renting a room. And even if you did own it, maybe you should kind of focus on peace and love, because peace and love is much more pleasant than being angry and irritated for things you can't change or can't control. Like, there's no amount of somebody else doing something that you're ever going to be able to feel good about manipulating them. I guess the main reason I wanted to relate this story is that when you find yourself, I was talking with somebody else today about a potential job, if you can call it a job, a live-work situation I may find myself in next year. And we brought up how much people like drama. And he said, it's just amazing to me that people like drama. And I was like, people love being angry, they love drama, they love being righteously indignant, they love it. And all of us have that tendency. I know that when I was younger, I really valued anger, and I really valued righteousness, which means that idea that I knew what was right and that other people were wrong, and if they would just fucking do what I said, then the world would be a better place. It's a very common mindset that is so very wrong. And I'm telling you now. That if you ever find yourself angry about something happening outside, it's really good to notice if you're attached to the high you're getting off of anger. And let's, bring up a very common thing right now is the political situation. I won't even say his name, but it can be extrapolated into any culture. That if you get high off of talking about some political story, you get really angry about how people are living wrong, and that person who's control everything did it wrong, and then all these people are wrong. If you get righteous and you get high and and enjoy getting angry. And a lot of people, when I would say this to them when I was younger, they're like, I don't enjoy getting angry. And I was like, yes, you do, or you wouldn't continually do it. But if you just notice that that's where your values lie in enjoying being angry. And specifically being upset about things you can't do anything about. If you can notice that and just really ask yourself, do I like this feeling of anger and stress over something I can't do anything about? And what is the option? It just sounds so cliche to say it, but I mean, if you understand that there is an option of peace, that you can say, that you can say, okay, so I could be angry about this thing that I can't control. I can repost 1,000 memes about being hangry about someone. Or I could explore what peace feels like. What's the practice of letting that go? What's the practice of what does peace feel like? Can I value peace above righteousness and anger? It's so difficult to watch people suffering, being so unhappy over something they're completely creating themselves. Like, when I was trying to ask them what was upsetting them, they couldn't articulate what it was. They just knew that they had a right. They had a right to be angry about other people on the beach, about other people around them. I'm like, do you want to use that space? They're like, no. And I'm like, is it loud? Is it bothering you? And they're like, no. And I'm like, it's just the fact that you can see people there. And they're like, yeah. Do you want to get away and go to paradise? What's the problem with paradise? There's always a problem. I mean, I'm somebody who's been a traveler since I was in my late teens. And they're definitely 20 years older than me or something. And I said to them, like, haven't you noticed that you can't go anywhere that there isn't a problem? Everywhere you go in the world, there's a problem. Sitting alone in a room, there's a problem. It's too hot, it's too cold, you're too tired or too hungry, or your back hurts or your knee hurts. There isn't a place you can get while you're alive where there isn't a problem. But you can be at peace anyway. And it's really amazing if you just choose to value peace, explore how do you cultivate peace, which a lot of peace comes from just not generating unhappiness. When we look at our actions, we're like, this is making me angry and this is making me angry and he did this wrong. And if you look at it and you're like, okay, but what happens if I'm not angry about what he did wrong? Is it actually doing anything good for the world that I'm wrong, or that I'm angry about this person who did something wrong? Yeah, Michael, I told the people that I was studying with who were angry at them for being angry at us that we should send love at them. But then I was like, I need to go talk with them because I don't want them yelling at us. I don't want them to generate negative energy at them. And one of the things that they felt was that they had been disrespected. I remember once in Amsterdam, and these people might have been Dutch, I don't know. I tried to get them to tell me their name and stuff, and they didn't. So I told them my name. I wished them peace and happiness. But I remember once I walked into a shop in Amsterdam, and I just walked in and looked around, and somebody was very angry at me. Now, a lot of times in Amsterdam, I was mistaken for a homeless, drunk drug addict because I wore like a beat-up leather jacket and had a long beard and long hair. And so people just assumed I was a drug addict or a street person. So that may have been where this came from. But this person was very angry with me, and they said something in Dutch, and I said, I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. And then they realized that I wasn't a drunk because of the way I responded to them. And they said, oh. And I said, did I do something wrong? And they're like, you walked into my shop and you didn't even say anything. And I thought, wow. Okay, I understand that you're upset about that, but in the culture I come from, we don't do that. It had never been something that I did. But then I started to notice in Amsterdam that people, when they walked into shops, would often say hello when they walked in and goodbye when they left. And it's a habit that I've taken up since then, that when I go into a restaurant and I eat food, when I leave, I usually try to look at a server or an owner and say thank you for the food. And I try to greet people when I arrive, but I make more of a point of it when I'm leaving, I guess. But I thought it was interesting, these people, they just basically hadn't been respected, that nobody had come up to them and said, hey, is it okay if we exist near you? You guys have probably seen signs that say no loitering, right? Loitering comes from, I think, a Germanic word that means people. Don't be a person here. Anyway, there's a million reasons to be upset about stuff, and I don't know if any of them are worth it. So I just wanted to relate that story in understanding that if you're unhappy about something, if you're imagining some nightmare situation and you're feeling the misery in your body, whenever you notice that you have a choice, that you have an option, regardless what the story is, just take a second and imagine, explore in your mind what you'd lose by not being angry about this. Explore in your mind, what kind of benefit you're getting from this unhappiness, and what are the other options. And sometimes you really can say oh, it's really not important, I can let it go. And if you're not in a place where you can say I'm important and I can let it, or it's not important and I can let it go, really just try to check what your values are about the way you actually want to feel. Because I don't know, I'm going to go back to this cliche, or not a cliche, but it's a saying that somebody told me that I really like, that if you want peace, you have to practice letting it go. And you'll learn that if you let go a little, you'll find a little peace. And if you let go a lot, you'll find a lot of peace. And if you let go completely, you'll find complete peace. There's just so many people in the world and so many things we can't control. Getting upset about them, to the best of our ability, it's just not the best use of our time. Anyway, that's all the time I have today, because I'm going to go eat and then do this class, and it'll be dark by the time I get back. I don't know if I'll continue doing a video every day this month. We'll have to see. There's going to be traveling at the end of the month, and there's going to be this class happening over the next 10 days. I'll do it at irregular times when I think of it and tell stories and stuff. Still very tired. And trying turmeric on my rash. You're welcome. Much love to you. I'm heading off.